Stop.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Stotts or Andrew is good. Yeah, how's it going?
Fantastic, mate. How are you doing? Such a pleasure to see you.
Very, very good.
I
How amazing was Dr. Mandea? Very, very impressive. Very impressive.
absolutely, and one of the things that do happen when you are around is the amazing energy that you have, and I don't know how you get that. The way you laugh, the way you write emails, the way you speak, you sort of absolutely, and it sort of rubs off on me, and I wouldn't take too much of your time because Helen specifically asked that she wanted to introduce you. So if you can give me a moment, I'll get Helen to unmute her phone or her PC or the connected device. I don't know what she's on. So there you go, Helen, take it away. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank
One.
you.
Thank you.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Helen. How you doing? Can you hear me, Helen?
All good, all good. Thank you so much for being constantly, and you've been a great support. So technical issues, with connectivity. I'm sitting in Mumbai, so I had a lot of problems, but I'm happy to have you.
We're all learning, Helen. We're all learning.
I know. Thank you so much. So for the audience, just to give you a little brief about Andrew. Andrew's got 30 years of senior management experience, mainly in retail, hospitality, leisure, and now he's with aviation, Etihad Airways, doing some amazing work. Prior to that, he was with Al Shaya, where he supported the career development of 90,000 team members across 19 countries. He's a great source of inspiration for a team. Follow him on LinkedIn. He, you'll find all of his, all of his praise for his beautiful posts for his employees, which is fantastic. Andrew, I know we're already running late, so please go ahead. Your profile is on our website anyway, and on the app for people to know all of the rest of your journey. But take it away.
I was just gonna say it's can I share my screen, but I don't have to. But host disabled participants.
Okay. Shri will give you. Shri will share that with you.
Yeah.
Let me
So
share
just
my
give me a
screen.
minute.
Be useful.
Yeah.
Sure. Just give me a second.
But I don't need to share my screen because you can just. But it might be useful for the participants if they're kind of seen that. I think while that's happening, I mean the most important thing for me, as with anything, it's absolutely. I'm open to support you. I mean, I'm talking to you, the audience. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask me around anything that we're going to discuss today, I'm also running an hour-and-a-half session with you guys at the end of the week as well, on day 5. So we're going to talk about leadership, we're going to talk about motivation and learning. So, I mean, I really encourage you to come to that workshop as well with us. Let me see whether I can do it. No, I still can't do it. So within Etihad, what we've been doing is, it's something I've been doing for quite a long time now. So I've worked with some fairly massive global organizations in my career. Very privileged to have been involved in those organizations, and along the way, I suppose we've learned some quite nifty tricks. And what I would like to try and do for the next 20 minutes or so is just to kind of explain some of those tricks to you. Hopefully you can perhaps take that. And as I said at the beginning, for me, it's very important that you feel very comfortable asking me any questions at all. So nice and simply, what we've done is we've decided that we're going to work on what we call a no-do-be project. So really, when I first came here, when I sort of engaged with the chairman of Etihad about 2 years ago now, we kind of started working around what an employee at Etihad would need to understand, so what they would need to know to be successful, what that would look like if we were demonstrating it, and why it would be important to know that. So within our organization, we have now 5 career levels. So entry level administrator, then we have officers, we have managers, senior managers and executives. That's our kind of 5 levels. And we then settle, after a lot of consultation, a lot of discussion, on 8 knowledge areas. You can kind of see them behind me. So those knowledge areas are effectively, I know how to sell. I know how to teams, which is basically lead or work in a team. I know how to coach. I know how to present with impact. I know how to work my numbers. I know about the culture of Etihad. I know about the change in Etihad, and I know about planning as well. So we settled on kind of 8 topics, and those topics obviously grow in complexity. So what we've originally agreed with, that we would have 8 times by 5, and for those mathematicians on you, I mean, I haven't got a calculator, but even my basic mathematics says that 8 times by 5 is 40. So from there, we've built out a curriculum across the organisation. So 40 modules, depending on where you are in the organisation. So 3 critical parts here. So first of all, what you would need to know to be effective. Let me just show you my presentation now. It's available to me. Makes it much easier. Let's do that. Let's go there.
Yeah, you can share screen, Andrew.
Yeah, I can do it. That's fine. So I've gone full screen now. So you should be able to see my screens. That's good.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
It's good to go.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so basically what you need to know, how you basically demonstrate it, and why it's important to know it. That's very, very important. This all kind of feeds back to an earlier piece, really, and I want to spend a lot more time doing this with you guys on day 5. So again, I'd strongly encourage, if you want to come on that session, I want to do a much deeper dive into this. But what we know about human beings is that we need, it's about lever and influencers. So we tend to take a 4-pronged attack. Now, those 4 prongs are effectively, driving engagement. I want to do it. So my employees, taking real ownership of it. The second piece is, and that's really with me, I mean, I take a lot of responsibility there, but it's about showing people how they can own their learning, understand that they do have a future, that they understand their future, their future destination, that they understand that they have a career path. So it's very, very structured across the No-Do-Be. We do a lot of stuff around what I call WIFM, so what's in it for me, around I should. What I tend to back away from is making people do things, because when we really sort of force people to doing things and they're not really buying into it, it's less effective. It is a mechanism, we use it for compliance and stuff like that, but realistically, we focus on really engaging people, making them want to do it, so them taking personal responsibility for their learning, showing them how they can, and basically talk about why they should own their learning with Etihad, very, very importantly. So as I mentioned, we have what we call a No-Do-Be model here. So the know is what they would need to know, for example, around teams, to be effective in their role at a given career level. And critically, assuming that they knew it, how would that be demonstrated in their job role working for Etihad? So what they would know and how they would then take it back and demonstrate it. And that's important, because if they understand how they should be demonstrating the application of the knowledge, it becomes a much easier conversation between the line manager and the employee. So the more transparency you can give it, the easier it becomes for team members to own their own growth and development within the organisation. So that's something that I've been applying for probably the best part of 30 years now. And I know that you're looking at me going, wow, what cream does he use? But I've been working in this space for quite a long time now. So again, I would be very, very happy to sort of spend a lot more time with you guys on day 5 of the conference. The final thing here really is just around why it's important. So that's the B, because we know that if an employee understands why we do something in a particular way, why there's a particular policy, why it would be beneficial to work in a team in a certain way, why it would be important to plan in a certain way, why we have the values that we do. If you understand why we go through change, and it's perfectly natural to go through change, it makes it much easier, and that ultimately leads us to having empowered employees. So the No-Do-Be model really provides clarity so that we can focus right the way across those 3 elements that make an employee successful at Etihad. So it's really what the employee must know, the theory tools, the processes, the policies, the technical ability that they would need to know to do their job to a high standard, to what we would call an experience standard. I'll talk more about that in a couple of moments. Obviously, probably one of the biggest challenges we have is obviously how they then take that knowledge and they apply that knowledge, that's to do, and then why it's important to understand why they're doing it, which drives obviously empowerment of the employee. And that's all linked back to our values as well. So we have a set of values, we have the 8 knowledge areas, and that then forms our performance process. So in the organisation, we have a performance measure, which is obviously around delivering the goal. And we then have a learning measure, which is about how we deliver the goal. So there's those two kind of like pieces working there. I haven't got a chart, but you can see from my arms, there's this piece here which is around the goal, delivering, and this piece here and how we do it. If I didn't have that measure there, the how we do it, as opposed to the what, we would perhaps be encouraging quite negative behaviour. So it's very, very important that people understand what they're doing and the best practice on how they apply that knowledge when they're working within their particular part of the organisation, be it as an administrator, as a junior member of team member, as an officer, someone who's sort of like taking their first steps into leadership and supervision, right the way through to our sort of like senior executive teams. So what it basically does, it allows us to summarize how the employee brings together everything they know, everything they do, and everything they can be, so they can be effective for Etihad Aviation. What we've then done is we've then taken it one step further, and I won't spend lots of time on this slide here, but we've broken down our learners into 3 categories. So what we call our beginners, our experienced, and our experts. And each of those categories is very, very clearly defined. And I'll show you this in a little bit more detail in a couple of seconds, if it's okay. So, and the reason I want to do this is because what we've tried to do is go down a micro learning process. I was listening to Dr. Mandir a few minutes ago, and it was fascinating what he was saying about our dear friend COVID-19 and the havoc that has been reaping right the way across the global economy. And obviously I work for an airline, so you can imagine that the impact it's had on any airline has been quite enormous. What we've actually found though in that period for us is that we've actually seen a massive spike in learner engagement, in career engagement within the organisation. And a lot of that is down to our sort of pre-planned strategy. Now, we couldn't actually have predicted COVID and that kind of global crisis that the virus has brought. But what we did have a very clear idea about how we would be delivering learning for Etihad as we move forward. So the world's changing, particularly the world of learning and development is moving very, very rapidly. I like to see my function as a bus driver as opposed to a passenger or someone who's running behind the bus. So it's really important for me as a function that we are really connected to the organisation, listening to what they need and making sure we're delivering that. And again, with our organisation, it's around those 8 sort of critical bits of knowledge, our 8 knowledge areas. When we came here, it was really around kind of setting up a process where we could say, right, let's try to like drop in micro learning to our team members. And I kind of stumbled across this concept really because if you think about platforms like TikTok and YouTube, Instagram, many of those platforms will have lots and lots of learning content. And a couple of weeks ago, I'm very, very lucky. Both my children now graduated university. And I was in the kitchen and I was watching my daughter make a green Thai curry. And what was fascinating about it, apart from the quality of the product that she actually ended up with and put in front of us for our dinner that evening, was how she'd gone about learning it. And so, for her, she wanted to have a Thai green curry. And so she went to YouTube and she typed in Thai green curry into YouTube, and there was a video with a recipe, and she was able to then, with her iPad, literally next to her in the kitchen, she was able to watch the chef, the Thai chef, sourcing the ingredients. So what he should be looking for, what she should be looking for when they're producing the dish. And then the beautiful thing about it was that my daughter Georgia was able to then pause the video and actually use that to actually make the curry. And was it as good as the Thai chef in Thailand? I don't know, but pretty much there. I would say that it's difficult to say because you can't compare the 2 dishes, but I would say it's probably a good 95% of the way there on Georgia's first attempt. And I can give you now countless examples of where she's made Victoria sponge cake, or she's made a brownie, or she's made a curry, and it's just incredible how she can do that. So she's actually has the information at her fingertips. So our initial concept was that we would take that kind of YouTube education mechanism and use that to deliver learning into our teams. Again, we'll speak a lot more about this on day 5 if you'd like to come and kind of listen more about what we're talking about here. And what I'm about to say now is going to be quite staggering because I've been working with KPMG and I've been working with SAP and actually recently the British government, rather bizarrely, I'm sort of name dropping. But it was quite interesting because there's been these kind of moments of like utter shock. because we came in and we said, what we're going to try and do, we're going to try to keep all of our content down to about 3 minutes. So we're going to make a series of videos, and we're going to keep it to really, really short, punchy, it's a 3-minute piece. And we might pick on a particular topic and we'll work on it. And so we've been about doing that. And now what the interesting thing for us around the way that we've been learning and helping our teams learn is that we quickly found out that staggeringly 3 minutes was far too long. And massive drop off. So what we've now started doing is feeding in learning every single day to our learners. And so what we've seen is about 94,500 hours of learning, which is being absorbed in these kind of like 90-second videos for this particular organization or this particular knowledge area. And the way that translates is that a learner, you know, will watch something around selling, it might be around active listening, or it could be around asking a question. And so they are given information, and then immediately after they have watched that video, they are asked a series of 6 multiple choice questions. And those 6 multiple choice questions around the 90-second video that's been watching are then supplemented with what we call a secondary question. So in between each question, so the question is asked, there's a choice of 4 answers for the question, and then a supplementary question kicks in, and it asks a very simple question, always the same question. Would you consider yourself to be confident, medium confident, or low confident in your answer to that question? And that gives us some very, very, very interesting data that we're able to run through our AI. So what we've got is effectively a group of individuals who are looking at the learning. And what we see very, very quickly is that some learners will say that they will get the right answer, but they will say they are low confidence. Or they will get the wrong answer and they will say they are high confidence. So what we're able to do then is to actually identify particular populations of individuals in, for example, sell or coach or planning, and actually work with them to really help them. So we might find a group of individuals who are getting it right 100% of the time. They're saying they're high confidence in that. We can hothouse those guys and rapidly move them forward. The other population who are basically saying they are getting it, they're very confident they're right, but they're actually wrong. We can actually take them offline. We can work with them in VILT environments, and we can actually really kind of understand what they're not getting about asking questions, or what they're not getting around active listening, for example. And this is really, really useful. We're then attaching that to a reward mechanism. So the more that they learn, they earn points. And I'm not sure how familiar you are. One of my favorites, or my dirty secrets really, is eBay. I'm a huge bidder. I like bidding on particularly Dr. Martens. But when I bid, I can obviously I see bargains. So we actually have then a shop, a benefit shop, a benefit kind of like boutique, let's say, and people can bid on those items in there. So it might be a day off, it may be additional holiday days, it may be a premium car parking space, whatever it might be, and individuals are able to bid on that, and they're bidding using learning currencies. So the more they learn, they basically bid on that, which is basically how the process works. And I'm going to sort of go quiet in a couple of moments. What I would like to do, just quickly show you kind of what it looks like in reality. So what you can see on the screen now is, this is coach. This is obviously the 3rd knowledge area for Etihad. This is for our 3rd career level. This is for manager. So top of the screen there, you can see career level M. So remember, we have 5 career levels: administrator, officer, manager, senior manager, and executive. So these documents exist, and there are actually 40 of these documents. So again, the 5 career levels multiplied by the 8 knowledge areas, which gives you the 40. And you can see along the bottom there what the learner should know, the measure, how they should then demonstrate that, take that knowledge back to their workplace, and then finally why it's important to know it. And at the top there, I touched briefly on that beginner, experienced, expert piece. So you can see what would classify as a beginner in that particular skill for that particular career level in coaching, what we would consider to be an experience for that particular skill at that particular career level in coaching, and of course what we would consider to be an expert, which is really, really useful. And at the top of the screen there, you can see the critical skills there. So, you know, for example, the ability to tell the difference between coaching and mentoring. So when we're testing and assessing people's coaching ability, we have simple questions, simple assessments linked back to those skills to help people understand their journey with us. And what's amazing is that obviously we can then map that. So for example, if I'm an administrator and I have aspirations of being a manager, what I can effectively do, I can map what I would need to know, do and be at the next career level. And I can then work on developing those skills either independently or I can assign to workshops. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You've heard enough of me talking. As I said to you, most important thing for me is always about you asking me questions. I'm absolutely here for you. I am genuinely your servant. So it's an absolute honour for me to be presenting with you today. Anything you'd like to ask me?
So many questions, Andrew. First of all, apologize for having made you wait before we could get in. We just got carried away. We'll try and catch up on the time, and thank you so much for sharing this fantastic insights. I mean, it's one thing to read about how to get things done, and it is completely another to learn about how it is being done in one of the largest aviation organizations in the world. I thank you. I thank your organization for sharing this fantastic insights, because there's a tremendous amount of takeaway for practical knowledge that you do not get really in academic or colleges and universities. This is exactly what we always tend to ask and request our speakers to do, as long as things are not too confidential in nature. The subject, let it be shared in terms of what is the best practice, what is your current practice, what are the lessons learned, what are the things that I need to unlearn. So I think you shared all of that. I mean it's extremely insightful to me when you start talking about 3-minute videos, and I said, oops, that's too short. And then you sort of supplemented that by saying, you know what, we learned shockingly that 3 minutes is too long. I said, what? Then you said 90 seconds is what people like. So people's attention span keeps reducing. That's a huge challenge for all of us in L&D. And you seem to have sort of found out what is the correct optimum time for people to learn, and you have rolled out something which is fantastic stuff that you're doing.
I think
yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think our function is going through a revolution. You know, I don't think. I mean, I think it's just the way that we do things. Increasingly we're being asked to measure. You know, a lot of people I talk to in my space, particularly in the L&D space, you know, they say, oh, it's very hard to measure learning. But in reality, if you can give hard evidence and you can give analytics and actually hard data on what people know and what they don't know, and you can identify those gaps.
All right.
You can obviously move it into a much, you can do a lot deeper dive on the topic, which is quite fascinating. I've interrupted you. Please forgive me.
No, not at all. I just have a couple of things. One, to say to all you folks, Andrew is going to be doing a workshop on day 5, which is a Friday, which normally I'm sure he enjoys himself being a weekend in Abu Dhabi. He is so kindly accepted to do a 1.5 hour, 2 hour deep dive into L&D and the kind of things that he has been doing for Etihad and in his past other career positions, as well as what he thinks we should all be doing in terms of, you know, one of the key things that he talked about is all of us who are in L&D, we start talking about ROI for training and learning and development, and how it is so difficult for us to even measure, and why measure, and it makes no sense. But then he's got hard evidence to say how to measure, what happens when you measure, and what benefits or ROI you can sort of start seeing in people. So these are very practical insights. I would like all of us to attend his workshop on Friday. The timing is on the agenda, and he's ever been so kind to be patient with us, so where we had delayed this by about a few minutes. Talking about measurement, one of the questions, very interesting questions, measurement actually limits human potential, says one of the attendees. Should we reduce human talent to numbers and limit it by measuring it? It's sort of a, question. So.
I think it's a great question. I think for me, and again, we'll talk more about this on day 5 on Friday with you guys. I think there's 4 critical skills here, and I said we'll explore that on Friday in a lot more detail. But if you really want to drive the organisation and drive people's knowledge, it's really around clarity of purpose. What you're asking them to do. So that's number 1 for me. Number 2, and it's probably one of the hardest, most difficult skills for leaders to understand. That's the piece around feedback. And feedback is very difficult to deliver unless we're very, very objective with people. So time and time again, I've had, I do these kind of sessions quite frequently within Etihad, obviously. And we're talking to people and we ask them maybe to explain active listening or to explain the GROW model. And it does actually surprise me how little they can actually, they just don't know these things. What's fascinating for me is that when they admit to not knowing, when I give them my supplementary question within the actual, within the live session, they'll often rate themselves as being experts in this. So I think anyone who's on any particular learning journey, the first step is really around understanding I don't know something, and it's actually awakening that within people if you want them to grow. So yes, I think you're right. At the end of the day, human beings are not software. We are not. We're not run on programs. But the more that you can give structure around it, most of our businesses run on P&Ls. Most marketing runs on a P&L, on a view percentage of marketing campaign, etc., etc. We have to be a bit more structured. We can't keep hiding behind the idea that we're very, very subjective, a very kind of, it's a highly technical term, fluffy function. Because the more that we are fluffy, the more that we are very subjective as a function, the more that we kind of hide behind excuses about human beings being, everyone's different and we have different needs. It makes us look silly. So, if we really want to be serious as a learning and development function, we have to start getting real, and that's what business is looking for from us, really. So, yeah, hopefully that gives you some clarity. I mentioned 2 other things there, because I said there's 2 things. I said there's 4. So we had achievement, the ability to give feedback. It's about from an employee's point of view, it's actually understanding how I'm contributing. So I call that input versus output. And then the final thing is about how I'm learning. Because if you can hit those 4 buckets, buckets, and you go, well, you can get all 4 of those lined up. Actually, what you find is incredible growth of employees. And we take away all the excuses, the blaming, you're not doing enough for me, you can't help me. It just makes conversations between managers and team members so much more transparent.
Okay. Great, makes sense.
You've gone on mute.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting used to technology, and these are things that I'm learning as well. So we will see you on Friday, Stotts again, and hope to have you throughout the session. If you like a bit of Indian music, tune in tonight. 7 p.m. and do a little bit of Bollywood Bhangra or tonight. And thank you so very much. Appreciate your contribution. Appreciate sharing these insights, and look forward to connecting with you on Friday again.
Yeah, superb. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Helen, thanks for being a superstar. Speak to you soon, guys.
Sure. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.